We are live. Welcome to the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast. Back again for week 5, presented by Yahoo. My name is Chris Kirkwood, screen name Kirk Dees, here with my co-host, the well-esteemed, the crusher, the occupied fantasy leader, CEO, CFO. What do you want? How many more titles do you need? I don't know, but he's the man, Brian Jester. What's going on? How was week 4? And are you looking forward to this week 5?
That is quite the intro, my friend. Thank you. Week 4 was not great for me on Yahoo, admittedly. It sounds like you did much better than I did. So I'm looking to get back on the horse and get back to our winning ways.
Yep. And I'm like addicted to these single game showdown slates. So it's only a matter of time where I start bumping them in FanDuel now too, because they're the same thing as Yahoo pretty much, except there's no defense on FanDuel. But there is kicker, or is there defense?
No defense, but there is a kicker. So welcome to the dark side.
I mean, I loved Geno Smith last night, so I figured I would have won if I entered. I mean, that was crazy. That was crazy to see. But for all that are listening here, let's pump out some of the promos here. I think we're still using Grinders 25 for a free. 25 or what is the bond? I got to look this up here. I should be more prepared. Yeah, it's Grinders 25 for a free 25 bonus on your first deposit. If you haven't deposited yet, you should be playing Yahoo. I preach it. I've been preaching it for years. It's lower rake. There's plenty of overlay to catch there. There's great contests. The baller they've just been giving away. They've been, giving away overlay on purpose. What is it this week? Have you checked it out? It's got to be,
yeah, it's another 150K overlay this week too.
Yeah, just giving away $150,000. This is the most EV tournament in DFS right now, and I'm seeing a lot of the familiar names starting to come over now into here. So everyone's playing, but there's still room. Get in here. They're also doing a live final this year. The action's been great. So come over and play Yahoo with me and Jester. All right, week 4 had some hits and misses. I was doing great. I thought I was a runaway, to be honest with you, on Yahoo on my main lineups. I didn't do that great in the baller. I didn't have really anything competing for the top. But man, Tyreek Hill came out of nowhere, and I had David Montgomery went down, and so that hurt because he was just smashing. And he was low owned in my contests. And then I didn't have Tyreek, and Tyreek came out of nowhere. So even though I had McLaurin and DJ Moore, I got caught by McLovin, that bastard, for about a point and a half. And I was heated, but I still had a really profitable day, so I can't complain. How does this slate look to you? Building off of last week?
Yeah, I think there's even more obvious values this week. We try to do a great job in this show of identifying the specific values on Yahoo. And I think there are even more than the first 4 weeks. I think there are very, very clear values this week. So one, you have to figure out who those are, and we'll help identify those today. But then I think most importantly is who do we play and who do we pivot away from in these smaller contests to get different, because it is so obvious, I think.
Yeah. So I've been doing some review too, just big picture. I'm wondering if my player pool is too big at this point, and I'm going to try to tighten it down this weekend and see if I get some better results.
How many players do you normally play in your 150?
Oh man,
roughly.
I don't even know. It varies from week to week. So, I start out in my first run and I get like in 150, I get like a 90 players, and then I do try to weed things out, and I do try to go through my groups. The problem is like, I leave too many like fringe players in my groups because I want to catch that Darnell Mooney big game or that, or something like that. But I think it's a leak.
Yeah, I normally try to get down to 60 or so. I mean, again, this is FanDuel and DraftKings when I'm 150 maxing every week. But yeah, I found the sweet spot to be in that 55 to 65 range. But there are pros out there who get up to 90. So I think it's just really, your style and what you're comfortable with.
Yeah. And this slate this week. So the interesting thing, at least that stands out to me, is that, every week we've come here and we've had 5 teams with over 50 point totals. Right. This week, it's a little bit different. We've only got 2 games with at least a 50-point total. One is the Packers-Bengals, which right at 50. The other is the Giants-Cowboys, which is probably going to get a lot of love just because it has the highest total, 52. And then, there are some more games in there that, with high 40s, like the Tennessee-Jacksonville game. There's the Bucks are on the slate here, so they have a high implied team total. They probably have the highest implied team total on the slate, if I'm not correct. Yeah, they're tied with Arizona, and the same thing. That's a 49-point total against San Fran. So there are plenty of places to go. There's also some slow games that are not going to be very conducive for fantasy points, such as the Broncos Pitt, most likely, although we're probably going to continue to talk about Najee because they don't change his price. So, so that's a decision we'll have to make. I think this Carolina defense is pretty good, but I do kind of like this Eagles-Carolina game. Interesting news we got today with Detroit in a 49-point total with the Vikings is now TJ Hawkinson is questionable, right?
Apparently. I didn't even think it was ever in question, but then we get word that he has a shot to play on Sunday. It's like, well, shit, I didn't know it was even I didn't know it was an issue.
Yeah. So things are coming out of the woodwork. We've had some other news early in the week. Well, we know David Montgomery's down, so there's decisions to be made there with a cheaper running back. But let's start it off like we usually do at the quarterback position. We'll do our best values and then our main lineup preferred plays. That'll be the format. So I think right off the bat, I kind of leave my main preferred play. I don't, because he's probably usually the best value and the main lineup play, but I'm going to leave him till the preferred plays because I'm going to start off with Trey Lance as a value at 23. This is a guy who, in his just a half of football, 20.4 fantasy points. He fits the rushing mold of the QBs with rushing upside that we want. He did go for 41 rushing yards. His fantasy points were, he had an easy touchdown to Devo that was just a complete breakdown in the defensive end. But, that's part of football. At least he saw it, completed it, executed. He is rushing. He's got a good coach as opposed to like the same situation we've been with Justin Fields. We're not dealing with Nagy. Shanahan is going to game plan to his strengths, right? Like that's what should happen. So Trey Lance is popping off, jumping off the page for me. Jalen Hurts continues to get it done, whether it's garbage time, regular time. I mean, we saw his floor game a couple of weeks ago. Basically, he is the QB number 3 this season. He's only $28. He's averaging 56.5 rushing yards a game. There's a lot to like. And then I have some like fringe plays like Trevor Lawrence I wrote down, but that's who I had for the values. I'm leaving one clear value off, but you're going to hit them now. And that's going to be my main play. I guarantee it. So what do you think about those guys? And you see anyone else?
Yeah, I think there are 3 clear quarterbacks this week. And if you just sort by projected points, whatever source you use, these 3 guys are going to be in the top 7 or 8. And then you can notice that their prices are dramatically different than the other guys in the top 7. If you look at our model at Occupy Fantasy, we have Hurts and Lance in the top 2. And the third guy is going to be Daniel Jones, who I assuming you were going to mention. He's only $25, playing in the highest total game on the slate. Has been doing really well this year. They're passing the ball a little bit more. He obviously runs the ball too. So, I mean, it's a tough decision between those 3 guys, Hurts, Lance, and Jones. But I guess for your main lineup, you're looking to, have some security, have a floor. Hurts, I guess, again, as an underdog, Lance as a rookie, there are some question marks there. And Jones, even though they're 7-point underdogs, he's probably the best play of the group at 25. But I think all 3 of these guys are good options.
I mean, Jones, we talked about this kind of jokingly earlier that he was the second highest graded PFF passer when I broke that. I think that was going into week 2 or week 3. And I think he's still in the top 3 as of right now. So there's still certainly no complaints about, how scary he used to be complete. You never knew you were literally worried about getting like 5 fantasy points from this guy because he would make so many stupid decisions. Right. But he certainly has been good. The Giants offense, even though they were missing a lot on their wide receivers last week, they put together a good game against New Orleans. They won the game. Daniel Jones played really well, 28 for 40, 402 yards passing. He only had 4 rushing attempts for 27 yards, but that's the lowest he's had all season. Other games was 9, 8, or 6. He's had one game where he ran for 95 yards against Washington. So this is a guy who brings upside from both sides, right? So he was my main lineup preferred play at this point. I knew you were going to nail him, so I left him there for you. The only other guy that actually one more stat that I saw. So basically he's third in rushing yards, only behind Lamar and Hurts right now too. So he's everything we want. He's only $25. And Hurts is 28. So you get, it depends if you need that savings, but definitely we'll want some Hurts exposure too. Question. Are you done with Justin Fields?
I'm not done with him. I just think that these other guys have higher floors and ceilings right now. Fields is in our back pocket and he's minimum price, right? $20.
Yeah, he's $20.
But I just don't think you need it this week, right? If it was a tougher week where we couldn't find values at other positions, which is not the case this week and probably won't ever really be the case on Yahoo, I don't think you need to do it because, like you said, the floor is a little bit lower, and I just don't think you have to play him this week. But in tournaments, he's an option at $20, right?
Okay, so there's like 3 players that are like priced really high that it could make sense, that could certainly help if you can get a decent game out of him. One, that would be the running back position of Derrick Henry, who we're going to have to talk about at $42. I mean, that's an insanely high price. However, he's earned it, right? And the situation is still good for him, although some of their pass catching options should be back. AJ Brown should be back. Julio going to play?
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, they're getting a little bit healthier. But certainly the matchup is great there. So we'll talk about that. The wide receiver positions, it would be like Devontae Adams. And, he's 33. He's kind of the top end you make a decision on. And then there's also Justin Jefferson, who's just a beast, who I love. But, he's priced all up at 32. So I could make the case if you're, if you still want to have your optimal lineups and you want to get a couple of these high price guys or one of these high price guys in that Fields could make the play, but again, it's only $5. Right. So it's, and I feel like you're getting a lot more from Jones, unless, Fields comes out of the woodwork and starts coming along here. So any other guys you have an interesting take on at the QB position?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's a great option especially for the baller or any other tournaments of that size, because I think most of the ownership is going to be concentrated on those 3 dudes we've already talked about. So you can get Dak at much lower ownership than he should be in the highest total game of the week. Kyler always in play. The Green Bay and Cincinnati game has a relatively high total. So Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow there. You mentioned the Philly and Carolina game, and I'm still kind of shocked that total was so low, 44.5. There's a lot of good plays in this game. There are a few values, and I know there's going to be a ton of pressure on both quarterbacks if you just look at pressure rates. But again, Darnold against this defense, I like him a lot, especially if he's going to be Lamar Jackson around the goal line, just getting design rushes every single game. So
you know what? I've always preached that he had a play, like one good play, like the whole season last year and on like a Monday night game, I think
he ran for that 50-yard touchdown, right?
Yes. And he was electric. It was like unbelievable. And I'm like, this guy has it. And I've always thought he could run, but like, I never expected it to be doing it like this, but I mean, it's always been in him.
Yeah. But so again, I don't think the total accurately reflects the fantasy upside for that game environment. And so Darnold's definitely an option, especially if we like DJ Moore, which we do, and we'll talk about Robbie Anderson, who we like, and we'll talk about. We like Hurts, DeMonte. Like there's guys in this game to stack with. So to me, I think Darnold's one of the top tournament plays as well.
And I just got a notification that Matt Rule says McCaffrey is definitely doubtful for Sunday. Okay. And they're going to go with the cautious approach, they said. So
it's probably a good move, though.
Yeah. Maybe they learned something from last season. All right. Yeah. Dak is, I had him my other preferred main play. Like that's the game. That's the game that's going to gravitate towards. So as far, at least from like my main lineup where most of my money's going to go, I'm probably going to end up with one of those 2 guys. I could be convinced to go to Lance. If I start liking my builds better, I could be convinced to go to Hurts, but it's going to be that common theme. And except Dak is kind of missing that rushing, that the floor that we like from the other guys. And also volume is a concern with Dak, and it's also very concerning. This is a team with two incredibly good running backs too. So it's like, I think there's going to be a lot of variance with Prescott from week to week, right? Like we're going to see games when it's a CD game and an Amari Cooper game when he goes off and they all go off and they're going to have big games. Then there's going to be games where Zeke is going to take some scores. Pollard's going to break off for something. They're going to run the ball, run the clock. Their defense is so much better, improved this year that they can just be this run the clock all game, and that could really hurt some of the upside with Dak. But like I said, I think this is going to be a game where he's going to have a good passing game. So this is the one I'll be targeting. So I'm going to have one of those two guys most likely.
I like it.
All right, some flyers. Anyone else you getting?
I guess Brady probably should be in the mix. If you talked about his team total being that high and against his Miami defense, he's got three pass catchers you can stack with. So I think Brady's probably the only other guy that I haven't mentioned that is in consideration.
Yeah, I mean, and then we should mention Kyler.
Yes, definitely. Always.
He's $41. He's going to be extremely low owned this week. This is a game that certainly could, we could get a bunch of plays in this from a play volume standpoint. They've played, they've had some good games where, Kyler broke off for a 27-point performance last season in week 1 against them. You just have to consider this guys because he could honestly, break a slate from the quarterback position with his rushing upside. So it's going to make sure I definitely get some of him. My first crunch, I'm just trying to look over. I did get some Mac Jones, and I know why I got some Mac Jones because we'll get to that in the wide receiver position. Actually, that's a good segue to go over because to me, Jacoby Myers is extremely underpriced to start off on our value plays at wide receiver. So he said, I'm a New England homer for sure. I always like him, guy. He was the clear wide receiver 1 last season. He's the clear wide receiver 1 this season. He has not scored a damn touchdown like ever. He's got 17 catches for 164 yards over the last 2 games. They're using him more for some of the quick passes, but I think that was more of a design against Tampa last week because, you cannot run on Tampa. And Belichick's one of the few coaches that was smart enough to actually stop trying to feed the running game against them. And, they kind of utilized Myers as like the running back, right? Like they're using his low ADOT throws. And he was a volume monster. He's going to get in the end zone. This is the best possible matchup he could have with Houston, right? So I certainly think he's way too cheap and he's going to be a staple in all my lineups. The other guys I wrote down from value plays were I wrote down Devontae Smith at 16. And he may not get a lot of love this week because, he's got a tough matchup, but against Dante Jackson. But, this is a guy, he had 10 targets last week. He's the clear guy for Hurts. I'm definitely going to want some Hurts lineups. He's got a decent ADOT. But like I said, the matchup will be tough. So I think people will probably – they will get a lot of them on he just pairs obviously with Hurts, but I do think he'll be a little bit lower owned than what I'm expecting. Another guy I wrote down was Darnell Mooney. I said, we're chasing the Darnell Mooney game, but anytime you get so many attempts like he did last week, that I'm going to have to look at him if he's this cheap. I think he's always been a big downhill threat. I think he's good. Obviously, A-Rob is going to get more involved, and this guy suffering from quarterback play, but they don't have David Montgomery. They don't have the workhorse to feed, so they're probably going to have to open up the passing game a little more, so I can get behind playing him. The main preferred play, I'll leave it for you because there's one that's just completely obvious. So who are your values?
I assume you mean DJ Moore. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just they just don't raise the price no matter what. It's just $20 every week.
It makes no sense, man. It makes no sense. $20, and you talking about Myers was bringing back some PTSD because I was 1 catch for 3 yards away from 140K in the showdown on Sunday night with DraftKings, and they targeted him on the 3rd down, and it got knocked down at the line of scrimmage, and then Bill attempts the 56-yard field goal. So that was rough, but not gonna let that bother me because, like you said, he's way too cheap this week at $13. He's definitely one of the main plays. Mooney has overtaken Robinson so far as usage goes as the wide receiver 1 there, so he's too cheap. And then the other guys that I have written down, Terry McLaurin, again, another guy who's just not getting any price changes on Yahoo. Robbie Anderson, 141 air yards last week, 11 targets. He's been playing all year, getting a ton of snaps, running a ton of routes, needed some targets. So finally got the targets last week, couldn't convert. Now he's still really cheap this week. Everyone's going to play DJ Moore. So Robbie Anderson, I think, is an easy pivot for me if you're looking for a differentiation spot. And the other guy I have, I think, is just too cheap. He's not a fantastic play by any means. It's Jalen Reagor. Again, if you're pairing with Hurts and you're looking for non-Devonta Smith options, and Reagor is, I think, he's the minimum price at $10. So,
yeah, he is. So, and that he's a great play because there's a couple of ways you can look at it too with that. Like, obviously, Devonta is the guy that we want to play, but he does have the worst matchup. You know, we've talked about how this Carolina defense is much improved this season. And that's the toughest matchup, Dante Jackson. So Jalen Reagor could get more, and what we both have also identified as what could be a potential shootout. The Vegas total does seem low to both of us. So certainly Reagor is the next guy in line. There's other areas too. It could go to Goddard, Ertz. Both of these guys are going to command some targets, but I do like that call with, I mean, he's min priced, right? Like, and it just makes a stack. You can just make a monster stack with that. You know, because Hurts is underpriced. Reagor is min price.
Yeah,
you can you go ahead. Sorry.
So no, again, if you play Hurts, then Reagor and Smith are options. I wanted to ask you, if you do decide to go the Daniel Jones route, are you looking to pair him with Galladay or any of these other type of guys?
I have Galladay written as a main lineup preferred play, and cool. He's kind of, because I don't think he's going to get the love, but I think the upside is there. I mean, he's going to get the love in the baller. He's going to pair with Daniel Jones for sure. But, you know, there's no Shepard, there's no Slayton. He does have a tough matchup. Trayvon Diggs has looked amazing, right? Like he's like in looks like an MVP or, you know, defensive player of the year at this point. But Galladay, you know, he was the squeaky wheel and he got fed last week. So, and he looked good. And this is a guy we know is talented. They made a big play on bringing him over to the team. So he's the guy. And I might, you know, that might be a way I differentiate myself, kind of like in high stakes, you know, with a main lineup, is I don't think Galladay is going to make it because there's going to be so much focus on like DJ Moore and McLaurin, like you just said, maybe Deebo Samuel. So Galladay might be a differentiator. I'll see how that plays out, how people are talking about him through the week, how projections are going, if they're slamming him in there or not. But at this point, he looks to me like he'll go a little bit under the radar. So I love that call. Talk to me about Deebo. Are you interested at all at $24?
Yep. Again, he's just dominating opportunities, and there may be a little bit lower pass volume this week if Trey Lance is under center, but it's hard to argue with his market share in that offense. I had him listed as my top tournament play away from the Yahoo value. So Deebo's a guy I love. Odell Beckham is another guy who just dominating target share for his offense since he's returned. AJ Brown is expected to return, and without Julio, if that situation unfolds, then I think he's an incredible play at his price. And then Cortland Sutton is the other guy who has been dominating opportunities without Jerry Jeudy. KJ Hamler down now. And it sounds like Bridgewater is going to be back, which I think is better news for Sutton's outlook. So you get a couple of guys here that are dominating opportunities that should go a little bit overlooked just because of the other values on the slate.
Yep. I mean, it's just stacked. There's just so many different ways to go. And it's just been like that every week so far. I'm trying to scan here. So I love that OBJ call. I know we're a little concerned with quarterback play with the torn labrum for Mayfield, but and I did see something that Odell said that he's been playing with that same injury since
like 10 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess quarterbacks I guess receivers are okay with it. I don't know. He
must be pissed still about that getting missed on that easy touchdown, which I had a lot of Odell last week on like DraftKings. All right, I'm trying to scan here. I mean, Brady could go off in this game as a big bounce back play. So do you have a preference between Mike Evans is $24. Godwin is 26. Do you have a preference for either of those guys?
I prefer Antonio Brown. I think you get the price savings with AB. He's been underperforming his opportunities. I think the 2 end zone shots near the end of the game last week certainly helped that underperforming
I
aspect.
needed one of those so bad. I needed it. And man, I thought he was going to get it. He was so open on the first one. Actually, he was open both of them.
Yeah. So $19, you get a little bit of savings there. And, Godwin, the way Godwin's target share has been trending, I don't think it's going to keep up all year, but it's hard to argue with what Antonio Brown's done when he's been on the field as far as opportunity goes. So I think I would prefer AB if I had to choose between any of those receivers.
Wow, that's yeah. I mean, the price, you get a little savings there, but yeah, that's the tough thing with this team. It's tough to play roulette with these guys.
Yep.
But I mean, Brady's going to bounce back, I think, in a big game this week after kind of a disappointing game. And that could have been emotion driven. You knew the Patriots were going to come out, strong. I mean, you could tell it just by looking at Steve Belichick on the sidelines,
licking his lips.
Yeah. You gotta love him. And the mullet, it's like, it's so funny. And he's like everyone. Your first thought is, oh, that daddy, nepotism. Daddy gives him a job, and then you look at him on the sidelines. He's got the mullet. He's like trying to overcompensate for all of it.
Oh man! As a Pats fan, did you expect that game to be close going into it?
I thought the Pats were gonna play them tough. I really did. I just thought it was going to be like their Super Bowl. I didn't expect them. I didn't expect the Bucks to play so poor, for their offense not to be humming at all. But I did expect a close game. All right. I'm just looking down the list here of some guys that, from ownership standpoint, like sub 10% at least at this point. I mean, there's a ton of them. Man, I would love to say Deontay Johnson, but Ben is just so bad. But he's the target monster. But it's Denver. But no one's going to go there.
Yep.
Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson is $16.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to click on his name given what he's been doing lately. But again, you got to think they started getting him involved, right?
Yeah, like I don't believe it for 1 minute that like Darnell Mooney is. Although I listed him as a value. Like I should probably cross that out and put Allen Robinson as the value, because for $4 is not going to be hard to find. And Allen Robinson is a clear wide receiver one. He just hasn't connected with, you'd think that they'd be able to put something together soon. So, I mean, man, I'm writing that down. How did I miss that? Who else is there? So, Mike Williams is going to be extremely low owned because he's $25 and he had that one, it was a Keenan game, the last game, plus Herbert missed him on like what would have been a massive touchdown in that game. I know, because I had Mike Williams a lot in the showdown, but I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, Keenan is still Keenan and going to demand, there's going to be games where Keenan gets a ton of targets, but Mike Williams, I still believe that is going to have a massive role all season too. So, and he's got monster upside. So I do like that. I like your OBJ call. LaVisca, I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, it should be more opportunity with Chark down, and they actually used him in a little bit of a deeper role than he had been the first three and a half weeks or whatever. So I like the LaVisca call a lot. I think he's underpriced on pretty much every site. And I don't think a ton of people are going to play him, but yeah, you gotta understand that there is a little bit of an increased role and more targets to go around now.
I mean, all these guys are going to be loans. That you nailed too. Antonio Brown, Cortland Sutton, LaVisca, OBJ. Like, there's just a lot of opportunity this week for like the baller to get a little bit crazy. It's not crazy. These guys are studs. So
right, it's not crazy.
Take advantage of some of these low ownership on a lot of these receivers. So if you're doing a crunch or you're building lineups out and you're not getting them, I would, go back and put more of an emphasis on bumping up some of these guys, because any of these guys have monster upside on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, it just feels so bad on Yahoo because there's so many, like the obvious values are so obvious. And I think a lot of people would just get stuck. It's like, how can I pivot away from DJ Moore, who's $20, or McLaurin, who's 21, or Myers, who's 13. But again, like, they're points per projection on median outcome values. But, we're talking tournaments here. We're looking at ceilings, like very easy. They don't reach the ceiling outcome. So
I mean, we're talking about two different players between Jacoby Myers and Allen Robinson, right? For just $3 more. And
Right.
Allen Robinson has, the quarterback has been an issue and he has not performed. He hasn't even broken 10 fantasy points yet. But so that screams to me like there's going to be a monster game coming here for him. So I think that's a way to get different this week. Let's move it on over to running back. I kind of like a couple of the plays are down, but it's, we don't have as ton of screaming play. I mean, I think I wrote down a bunch of values, but I have like issues with every single one of them. So I'll just start here. I wrote down top value, Najee Harris, 21. They just don't move his price. The usage is there. The efficiency isn't. He did have that one good game 2 weeks ago where he got that touchdown, but what did he was decent last week with 18 too as well. So I mean, he's basically had 3 solid games in a row, but it's felt like a struggle to get there. And he's, when they're in, third and long, which they've been all season, they check it down to Najee Harris. It seems like every single play. So
even on fourth and long.
Yeah. And it is this is sure. They do it on fourth and line. I know it's crazy. This is a tough matchup against Denver for sure. Denver's given up 7.7 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. It doesn't scream like this should be a very efficient game, but it does seem like the volume will be there from a target reception. So I wrote him down. I wrote Leonard Fournette down because Fournette, as we saw, was the clear back to have 83% of the snaps last week. Obviously Gio makes a big difference, but because, Fournette is good in the passing game as opposed to Jones, who is not. So you take out Gio, that's just naturally going to go to Fournette. But as long as Gio's out, I think we can count on him. He's just clearly the better back, in my opinion. Has looked like it this season so far. Miami is 20th in DVOA versus the run. They've given up close to 24 fantasy points a game to opposing running backs. Fournette's a guy I like. Damian Williams. This is a guy we know can get it done when given the opportunity. So I think we have to discuss him at 18. My favorite play from a homer position. Let me check the ownership here. Is going to be Damian Harris for New England. So basically, they just didn't use him last week. They just gave up trying to run, which was smart because you're not going to be able to get any running traction against Tampa Bay. It's just stupid to try to run these guys up the middle. However, he isn't fully trusted in the passing game, but they tried JJ Taylor for he had his opportunity and fumbled, and he's done. They're not going to use that guy anymore. He was a preseason hero. I thought he was, had the potential, but they were using Brandon Bolden. They're not going to use Brandon Bolden much. They like him in pass protection, but for many of the drives, Damian Williams was seeing all 3 downs out there. And I think that's going to continue this week against Houston, and what's a great matchup for him. People are off of him now. I think I've got him down here sub 5% ownership at this point. I'm not sure if I don't think he'll get steamed at all. Actually, I think he's going to be like my tournament take this week.
I like it. I mean, it goes to show, if you're not box score watching and you're following the games and you're following what's going on, then you understand that Harris, even though his box score didn't look great last week, he had the best usage he's ever had as far as passing game goes. I think he ran a career high in routes as far as percentage goes. So, and now he gets basically a complete 180 as far as matchups go, from the hardest rush defense to maybe the worst team in NFL history in the Texans. And you got to like him here in an increased role in a game where they should be leading the second half and he should get more carries. So I think I had him as my top tournament play as well. As far as values, Najee Harris, of course, Leonard Fournette, I'm on board as well. And then I had Saquon Barkley too, who's just underpriced. He's back to his full-time role, and it looks good doing it. And he's probably a few dollars too cheap.
I had Saquon as my main preferred play, so I left that for you again to take it home. So we're right on the same page here. Yeah, Barkley, 13 carries for 52 yards and a touchdown, 5 receptions for 74 yards and a touchdown against the Saints, which made it all the more impressive, right? Have been a good defensive team. Dallas D is a little bit concerning because they're much improved and people are calling them a pass funnel kind of at this point. But to me, Saquon is a wide receiver too, as well. So, I mean, this is a guy who's going to be utilized in the pass game. He's electric. We're getting the massive snaps that we wanted with him. I think he's underpriced at $23. So, I mean, he fits the mold as someone who is monster upside and as a nice guy I can feel in my main lineup. But I can also play him with a nice ceiling, he's only $23. So I love that. I think we got to talk about Derrick Henry, $42, but you can make a good lineup with Derrick Henry this week. I've done it. I've made a bunch of them already so far. The thing that stands out to me, I mean, he's got 113 carries so far. He's on pace for 480 carries and over 2,000 yards. I think like something like 2,100 yards or something, plus about 4 targets per game. He did have a massive game against the Jags last season. This is a defense that just makes it this is like the Derrick Henry spot. They can do whatever they want and they can just keep feeding them and should be able to break off monster plays. I think he brings a really safe floor and a ton of upside, not upside for the price, but upside for your overall lineup. And, in conjunction with a bunch of these value plays that we have on Yahoo, he's not such an easy fade as he normally would be if there was less value.
Yeah, I mean, it's too easy to fit him in this week. I think in your main lineups and most lineups, I think you have to fit him in just because, like you said, on most weeks, it's tough to get up to him. Most of the values are in that $20 range, but now we get basically every position has guys sub $20 that you can easily fit in that should be priced higher. So I think, Henry is a fantastic play and a guy that should be main lineup consideration. Other guys that I'm looking at, obviously Alvin Kamara, who getting usage on the ground, which is always nice. But there's 2 injury situations to monitor as well. It doesn't sound like Joe Mixon's going to play, and he's not as screaming of a value as he is, say, on DraftKings. But Samaje Perine, he's only $16, should get the goal line work. It's probably split the receiving work with Chris Evans, so we'll have to monitor that. And the other one that's kind of interesting is Chase Edmonds is questionable. I think he'll play, but if he doesn't, we get a full, complete role in a fast-paced offense with receiving work and goal line work with James Conner. He's already scored a few goal line touchdowns so far this year. James Conner would I think, elevate to a pretty clear value if Chase Evans does miss.
Yeah, he was certainly not very efficient, but he did get 2 targets, which was nice to see. So at least they showed that he can be involved in the passing game. We know he's got a track record in the past of doing that. He's getting the red zone work, like you said, this season. So that's nice to see. So that he would be a good play if Chase Edmonds were to be out for sure. I like those calls. Now, Kamara, I'd like to talk about because he's like a projection darling right now. He's getting shoved into a lot of optimal lineups, but there's a lot of worry there, right? Like, so yes, you're getting you nailed it. He's got the rushing volume, right? Like he's getting a monster workload, 26 rushing attempts last week, 24 the week before, 20 in the first week, but he got no targets last week.
Right, like we're not playing Kamara for the rushing volume, right? That's not why we want to play this guy. It's crazy, but I guess he's being forced in because he's only, and I'm putting in quotes here, only $31. But that lack of receiving work is definitely scary.
Yeah, and he's also being forced because of median projections from overall his career in the passing game, and that's probably still correct, right? Like maybe it was just an anomaly that he got 0 last week, but it's also he's got a lot working against him because he's got. We've got the Taysom stealing these rushing touchdowns and red zone opportunities. So it's scary. And he's not he's going to get played in a lot of people's main lineups. And I'm just not sure how I feel about that, whether I want to just overlook the no targets last game and trust that he's in a better spot this week against Washington, who hasn't been the best defensive team this season. Or I
think we know the answer, right? I think we can get around him by playing the mid-range values and going up to Henry, right?
Yeah, we can. And then there's some glaring tournament plays. Like Miles Sanders is $15. Miles Sanders deserves that price at this point in the season from what he's done. Yep. However, Miles Sanders has a lot of talent And I know who's the guy? Is it Gainwell is coming on strong and certainly took a lot of the receiving targets away from him last week. Gainwell had 8 targets last week, 6 receptions, 58 yards. They're probably going to still, work this guy in, and he's been priced, by the way. But I just see a guy that I know that I believed in the talent, like in Miles Sanders, and I see $15 and it screams to me like I want to play this guy this week.
It's funny because I had Gainwell written down as a value, like in tournaments. I guess it depends on the game script you think that happens, because I agree. I mean, Sanders should be getting more fantasy points than he is right now. But like you said, the game scripts have forced Gainwell to play a little more as he is the pass game running back. So it's a tough situation. It's a really tough situation. But I guess just keep playing Sanders until they price him down to $10, and then we'll keep talking about him, I guess.
Man, any other guys stick out to you for deep tournament plays?
What about DeAndre Swift? He was $16 last week, failed everybody. Somehow his price got moved up to $22. I don't think anyone's going to rush to play him, but if we just take away the one game, we know this guy has 10 targeted upside. And I think for tournaments, he's a great buy low option, just based on what he did to everybody last week who played him.
And it was a tough matchup last week with Chicago to some extent. And Minnesota certainly seems like a better matchup. Plus now Hawkinson is on with the Q tag, should free up some additional targets. So yeah, you're right. Like I had him in my main lineup, and so I'm naturally, biased, and I don't want to go to him this week. Plus, and then so I see the price increase to 22, and I just kind of overlook him. But certainly makes a lot of sense there to get back on board. Josh Jacobs looked really good, and this is a guy. He's only $20, and this is a guy. Peyton Barber went down. Is Barber out again? Is he going to be out again this week?
I haven't seen an update on that, but that would obviously secure Jacobs' role if Barber is out again.
Because they're doing nothing with Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, it's surprising.
It's mind blowing. I played him in Showdown last week. I just couldn't believe that. I thought Barber went down. I was like, okay, even though I know it doesn't impact Drake's role, he was going to be the third down role. But it just didn't. They didn't even give him the third. They gave him no role.
Yeah, that was weird.
I mean, he got 1 rushing attempt for 2 yards, no targets, no receptions, nothing. It was crazy. So, and Jacobs looked good to me. So I think Jacobs is a steal at $20 this week.
Should be a good game script for him too, right? They're home favorites, I think. So.
Yep. Man, I would want to play James Robinson, but I don't like that price increase to 26.
Eckler is the other guy I had written down.
Yes.
I don't think anyone's going to really play, but we know he has crazy upside.
Yes, he looked amazing too. And he's just been a model of consistency. He gets, he's been getting red zone carries. He's been getting passes, always a reception threat for sure, but it's better. It's been nice to see that he got 15 rushing attempts last week, gets red zone 15 in week 1. So yeah, I definitely like Eckler, and you can make any of these guys work. Like we've said, from, we can use Jacoby Myers and don't really have to worry so much about, saving money on running backs. So we can get up to an Eckler. And I think Eckler has got to be based on what we've seen. We know Kamara has monster games, and we, in his range of outcomes, we've seen it. We're shocked at the usage in the passing game this season. We're tilted with Taysom Hill, like we've said, and I think from just a play standpoint between Eckler and Kamara, I think I'd rather take Eckler, to be honest with you.
I'm with you. I agree.
So, all right. So we got that done. So let's bring it on. Tight end looks kind of weak to me this week, because I don't like anybody really. So, the obvious play is Darren Waller at $23, because he's, a monster wide receiver 1, like we've talked about in each of the weeks. He's disappointed in the last 3 weeks overall. Last week in week 4 and showdown slates, he kind of got there. He did have a sick touchdown catch, which was nice, but he did only get 50 yards receiving. only caught 4 of his 7 targets. This is a guy who broke off 19 targets in week 1. So we know the monster upside, but it's not the best matchup for him, which is a concern with Chicago. They just haven't given up much against opposing tight ends. They kind of never usually do. But I think he's the clear easy play that he's going to get fed in optimizers. And like for main lineup, I think he's going to be like 100% owned in like those 10-man contests that I play. But George Kittle is an obvious pivot, who, just based on what we know from upside in the past, he hasn't had it this season at all. It's a new situation with Trey Lance, potentially as his QB this week. So we don't know what to expect, but we do know that this guy has a monster ceiling in him. Right. And so we're obviously going to want exposure to him. I can poke hold at all these guys, but like Kittle, so he's had no touchdowns yet this season, no 100-yard games yet. Tough matchup. Waller, 7 targets each of the last 3 weeks. That's good, but wasn't as high as what we were all going crazy for when he had 19 targets that first week. And his matchup, Bears have been good against the tight end. So then I go down to value guys, right? And I look at Dalton Schultz after last week, 71% of the snaps plus 8 targets. Giants also have give up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. So Schultz is a guy that looks good, but it also just feels like a fish play, right? Like
feels so gross, dude. $19. It feels so gross, but I think he's one of the better plays, which is how crazy it is.
But it just, and you have like, so CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper did like absolutely nothing last week. Right. So, I mean, it's so obvious to me, like that this week could be a CD and a Dak passing game, CD and Amari. And Schultz just gets faded out and doesn't do much this week when we all run to chase the production. So that's that. I think Dallas Goedert, $13 is an interesting play because Ertz is getting more targets. And Goddard's only had, only 4 targets per game basically, but did have a TD called back last week, is getting red zone looks, a lot of them. So he's $13. I can see going to him. I can see going to Robert Tonyan at 13 also. And then the other, I could also see going to Jared Cook at 13, although he just smashed in his revenge game the last week, but Cleveland did get crushed by Travis Kelce. But other than that, they've been pretty solid against opposing tight ends. But I just think Cook does have upside in him. And then the final play that I wrote down was Mike Gesicki. Basically getting wide receiver production in this offense, 18 targets the last 2 weeks. He's only $16. Pairs nicely with some of the New England, or no, who are they playing this week?
They got New England's former quarterback.
Yeah,
they played Tampa Bay this week. I think
sorry. Yeah. Pairs. I just wrote it down quickly. Pairs nicely in the stacks with Brady.
Yeah, I think Gesicki might be the best play at $16, right? Where he's not super cheap and just a pure punt, and he's not as expensive. The target volume for his price, I think, is pretty good. The other guys you mentioned, I think, are all in consideration. Tonyan, Jared Cook. I think Cameron Brate, if you're purely punting at $10, he had 65% of the snaps last week, and Rob Gronkowski's been ruled out once again. Tyler Conklin is another guy that just like it doesn't feel like his price is right. He should be way lower, but against Detroit, Conklin could easily catch a touchdown and help your lineup. It's just a really, really gross overall position. So it's either Darren Waller or Prey to score a touchdown, which is becoming more and more seems like that's the thing every week if Kelsey's not on the slate.
Yep. I mean, it just feels gross. So like I said, we can poke holes in every one of these guys. So I think outlining it out. So it's Waller, Kittle is the obvious next in line. I think probably a stronger GPP play from the ownership that Waller's going to get. And then it's just playing touchdown roulette with guys like Goddard, Tonyan, Jared Cook. Gesicki is a great play based on the volume that, and he's lining up as a wide receiver, so that's something always nice. Dalton Schultz looks good based on the snaps and targets, the last week for sure, and the matchup just feels fishy to me. So that sums that up. And then there's other guys too, but I mean, there's literally no one feels good. Maybe Noah Fant.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
It's just
I mean, just
that's how you
names
feel.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one name now, Chris, you had to pick one name for your lineup that's not Darren Waller, who would you pick?
I mean, it's Kittle.
Okay.
And if it's not Kittle, it's Gesicki.
I'm with you. Okay. I think if it's not those two guys, it's Gesicki for me too. So I think we're on the same page. It's just, but still, it doesn't feel great.
But I think it's an opportunity to get Kittle for lower ownership off of Waller this week. And I might be doing that in I might end up convincing myself. As of right now, my main lineup is going to have Darren Waller in it. But I usually find one spot that I really like to attack and make a conviction play. And Kittle might be that play for me this week. It's definitely in contention. All right. I think we've kind of covered everything. QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Do you have a favorite stack built on the plays that we've put together?
Yeah. So I think, again, it's really hard for me to get away from this Philadelphia Carolina game. So probably Darnold with DJ Moore and or Robbie, and then running back with Devonta Smith. I think no one's really going to do that. And, maybe it goes down in flames, but to me, it just, this never works out right when you think Vegas is wrong, but I think that total's so far off. I'm sure it'll be like a 20-17 game, but it feels like that total should be like 10 points higher.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just have this feeling this week. This is a feeling. This isn't based on numbers. I just feel like Tom Brady is going to ball out this week. Like it's going to be a bounce back situation. And I think you nailed it with Antonio Brown, but I think Mike Evans certainly. And I think you could even double stack in this game with Leonard Fournette. Because I think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns spread around from Brady this week. So that'll be a stack I'm looking for. And like I said, Gesicki makes an obvious bring back in that spot, which makes us a little bit different at tight end than a lot of the field. So I like that. Do you have a gross stack?
Oh God, I thought Darnold was a gross stack. I guess let's see here. A gross stack. Because we really didn't talk about this game much at all. It's probably Rodgers or Burrow.
I was just gonna say Burrow. That's who I was keying in on.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so we're on the same page with that. So you're thinking Adams, and then we got who do we take? Boyd? Do we take Higgins? Do we take Jamar Chase?
Oh God, I guess Chase, just because of his usage, but I mean, I doubt he continues to score a touchdown every single game, but I don't know, man. That's tough. Maybe if Mixon's out, maybe running back with the running back. Who knows? I got to figure that out still.
Boyd's coming on strong too. So, I mean, got 11 targets last week. Obviously that could change, but Boyd, he $18. He looks pretty play. All these guys look playable. Jamar, Boyd. I mean, that's a nice double stack too.
Yep.
Boyd and Jamar, and bring it back with Devontae.
I like that.
All right. Week 5 in the books. I hope people did well last week. You know what, Jester, this is your week. I feel like not only do I feel like you're going to do well on Yahoo, but you're going to have a monster showdown screenshot in one of these slates coming.
Please. I've been so close.
I've seen it. I know the tilt. I'm playing showdowns more this week, and the variance is massive and just like one play at the end of the game. But it's coming. It's coming for both of us.
Let's do it.
All right. So thanks a lot. This has been the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast presented by Yahoo, and we'll catch you next week.